So I'm Kathryn. I am the menopause lady now, the go-to expert on menopause, because I've done so much research now. I've worked with medical practitioners. I've done presentations like this to medical practitioners. I'm now a member of the British Menopause Society, and I was recently elected onto the Medical Advisory Committee of that society. So I'm sitting amongst, the best brains and the most dedicated medical practitioners for women's health. And we get this once a quarter, post-reproductive health, which keeps me up to date with what's going on in the world of menopause from a medical professional point of view. And it was very interesting to read in their opening editorial, this just landed on my doorstep a few days ago, the BMS is gravely concerned that without the right preparation, the NHS may not have adequate knowledge and capacity for the thousands of women who will quite rightly seek help and advice as they go through menopause. And this is because there's a 10-year gap, and a lot of good information in there that I picked up. I get invited as an expert speaker. I've been on Radio 4 Woman's Hour, local BBC radio. I did a special programme on ITV this morning about intimate areas of women's health as they go through menopause, because it's an area that's not discussed, certainly not in public, but the subject does need to be raised, because you guys need to know as much about all this stuff as possible so that you can deal with it and know what to do next. And I've created a menopause solution that I know works. I'm not talking about medication either. I'm going the wrong way. So what is menopause? Well, menopause happens to every single woman. It's a major event in a woman's life, and change starts to happen, surprisingly, from about the age of 35 onwards. That's when hormones start to change, and you may not notice them yet. And it all finishes around the age of 51, but you can still continue with symptoms till you're about 55 or so. So it's a hard slog, and the closer you get to that menopause moment, which is the last menses, the end of the women's reproductive life, there's a lot going on. Hormones are up and down like a fiddler's elbow, and some days you don't know where you are. But to me, it all seems to reach a tsunami level round about the age of 48 to 53, when everything seems to be happening at once. And 7 out of 10 women will experience debilitating symptoms that affect their daily work and lives, and they don't know how to deal with it, because we're all in ignorance. If I didn't know, I'm sure you're probably in a similar situation and don't know much about it either, other than what you've picked up in magazines and perhaps on the radio. So we're suffering in silence. So you really need to know about this stuff. This was really directed at the guys. And I'll bring in the names of the 7 dwarfs of menopause, obviously Disney's 7 dwarfs, and they have been given very good names: Itchy, Bitchy, Sweaty, Sleepy, Bloated, Forgetful, and of course my favourite, Psycho. Now, thank you for being generous enough to laugh just then, because it always does get a laugh, and I know why, and you know why, and that's because women are experiencing a variety of these symptoms, probably on a monthly basis. But when you get to menopause, they're all happening at once. And that's what you've got to cope with. You're not sleeping properly, you're getting bloated from food, your short-term memory loss, you think you've got Alzheimer's, when in fact you haven't. I can assure you categorically that you are not on the Alzheimer's trail at that stage. And the hot sweats, the hot flushes and the sweating, and it affects women. It has such a detrimental effect to some women. It wasn't so bad with me, I'm pleased to say, But I know women that are doing shift work in the police force, for instance, who are in a call centre, and they're having to go out and refresh themselves at various intervals because they are just perspiring. You can't believe the amount of water that you can perspire on a daily basis. And it takes no prisoners. It's 24/7. It's not, oh, it's only in the morning or it's only at night. It can be at any time of day, and it can be 20 times a day, twice a day, or none at all. So just be aware of that. And this is a reason why we need to know more about everything. And again, I was hoping the guys would be in here because I'm sure they'd love the next slide, as I'm sure you will too. Is this the anger management course? Because you have these moments, these days, when you think the whole world is having a go at you, and it's everybody else's fault. What's the matter with you lot? Are you all idiots? I know what's going on here. And I can see you're smiling and you recognise this state already. But it happens, and it's not until you become aware that these things can happen that you can say, oh, hang on a minute, am I being a bit unreasonable here? Perhaps something else is going on, and I need to just have a look at that and find out new ways of, when you're recognising that this body, this physical thing that's going on, that you can feel your temper rising and you just want to scream at everybody, then you can find out how to calm it back down and just be a little more reasonable and more understanding, and help get your colleagues to understand you a little more. Because it's happening to all women, so it's had such a stigma attached to it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Women will talk about it over coffee, a few symptoms, but they don't really get down to the nitty-gritty of perhaps the personal stuff, like relationships, like intimate areas of the body that are causing them concern, and which can be destructive to a relationship as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's not all as bad as it sounds. If you can laugh about it, then we're on the way to doing something about it. So is this you? You know, this poor, miserable woman on the right with the tissues. This was me. I just felt miserable. I was crying, being emotional for no apparent reason. Why does that happen? But, you know, and you're wondering, do all women go through menopause, or is it just me? I'm supposed to cope, surely. You know, I'm a woman, I'm supposed to get all this stuff. I've been going through it since puberty. But I don't understand. Am I the only one it's happening to? Are all my colleagues going through the same thing and we're just not connecting? Am I going nuts? Because you really do feel some days that you're just going crazy because you feel as if you can't cope with what seems to be a whole lot of things happening at the same time. You're trying to multitask and it's not working. You're being late for appointments, or you're forgetting appointments. All small stuff is happening, but it's having a big effect on your life because you know it's happening. And you think, other people must be noticing this. This isn't good. I've got to get it sorted. So if I can just get that out of the way. And, you know, you feel low, you feel miserable. You might lose your job. You're thinking, if you know, managers are noticing that I'm not coping so well, does this mean that I'll be sidelined and taken aside and said, you know, you're not doing your job properly, what's going on here? I don't know why I'm not doing my job properly. I just know that something's going on inside me and I don't know what it is, and I need to find out more. You get do I go part-time? Perhaps it's this lifestyle thing, work-life balance. I don't think there is such a thing as work-life balance. There is always compromise in whatever we do. And it's just about understanding what's going on and then realising, well, perhaps I just need to find out a bit more about this and I don't need to resign. Would I go part-time? Maybe, but perhaps not. And perhaps build in some flexibility into it while you sort yourselves out. Let's bring the men into this now. Men are very important when women are going through menopause because they can see it happening to their wives and partners, and they offer to help, and they just get, don't talk to me, I'm not going through menopause, I'm not old enough. But I've already told you that between the age of 35 and 55 is when your hormones are changing. Probably around the age of 48 is when you may start climbing the walls. And the man in your life can see this, and he wants to help, and he's just being rejected all the time. And this is what they tell me. Menopause is like a hurricane, because it's little understood by either men or women. It's deadly and dangerous. Let me just go up so you can get that title in. It's deadly and dangerous, because we're just like the, what's it called, the Wervishing, that's the one, and we're just rushing about, or we feel as if we're rushing about, trying to do all things, trying to cope, trying to do all the tasks that we generally have to do, looking after the house, the car, the children, the partner, all these different things, when actually if you just sat back and said, can somebody help me please? If somebody can do this, I can do that. And even at work, start to say no, because you know what it's like. Give a busy person the job to do, because they'll always get it done. So just say, I can do it, but not till next week, or whenever. Work out those different things. But have that in your mind, not ready to say no, but looking at your workload and saying, no, this is going to really push me past my limit, and I'm going to feel ill because number one, I can't complete it. Number two, I probably won't do a good job either. So let me just say straight away, yes, I can do it, but not right now. Can we do it in so and such a time? And build in that time lapse to give you time to deal with what's on your desk right now, and then move on to the other things, and have an agenda for it all. So that's how men are feeling. And I did an interview with a chap actually. I've already mentioned that he said it was like sleeping with a stranger, and as a result of that, I've put that into my course, because I felt it was so important that women understand where men are coming from as well. They're feeling rejected, they're feeling pushed out of the bedroom, and they don't understand why. Pushed out of your lives in so many different ways, and it's because they don't understand enough, and you don't understand enough to communicate with them, to talk about this and see how you can make things better. And I know you can make things better, because I did it myself. I was at the end of my tether. I thought my life was over. It must be the worst nightmare to go through a divorce situation when you've got a house and children and a business with my husband as well. I couldn't think of a worse scenario. And I was backing away from it at every turn on one side, and then thinking on the other, but I can't stand this guy, so why am I trying to remain in this relationship? And then we started talking, slowly but surely. I wrote him a letter, told him how I felt, because every time I tried to speak to him, I just burst into tears, and he couldn't understand that. What are you crying for? What's the matter with you? And so I wrote him a letter, and that was the start of our reconciliation, if you like. And it doesn't happen overnight, as like everything in a relationship, it does take time. But at least if you both know that you've reached a point where actually it is these crazy hormones causing this emotional turmoil, that you can both do something about it, and then they know how they can help support you. And we also get a lot of symptoms being misdiagnosed. You're feeling bonkers in the workplace, and you're potentially underperforming, you feel you can't cope, and yet there's so much spoken about stress and anxiety. Well, that's what it is. That's too much stress. I'm being given so much work to do, I can't cope with it, so it must be stress, and that's causing me anxiety. So that's leading into a mental health issue, isn't it? I better be careful here, because I don't really know what's going to happen. And then we come into the mental health aspect of it. Stress and anxiety seem to come within the mental health spectrum. And then you'll go to your doctor, you're referred to your doctor or specialist or whatever. Even with a specialist, you can't be guaranteed you get the right treatment there. And you're prescribed antidepressants. And they say, oh, well, this can help with your hot flushes. Not really. So why are you being prescribed antidepressants? Because some of the medical profession think that it will calm you down and that you will start to feel better and just perform in a normal sphere again. But it's hormonal, and it is now being recognised by psychologists, psychiatrists and the medical profession. They are now at last beginning to talk more together and collaborate, because it's hormonal health. It's your hormones are out of sync, and it's causing the mental aspect of what's going on. And so we've just got to be more aware of that. So don't think you're necessarily going to suffer from mental health, and you need that kind of support. It's been given a label of mental health, but actually it's your hormones. So we just need to look at that and find an expert that can help you through that and sort that and confirm that for you. But what am I talking about? It's often been said to me that I'm talking about women and all the things that are going on through menopause. So surely, why do we want to employ women? So we've got the elephant in the room, which is, why would you employ women? But actually, why would you not? Because we know they are a valuable resource in the working environment. They have so many things to offer. We've got over the fact that women get pregnant and need time off for maternity leave, and we can understand all that, and women have got the support. But then as we're going through menopause, there's a different kind of support that's needed. It's a different kind of knowledge to understand what women are going through and talk to you as I'm talking to you today. And I found, with all the work I have been doing, that talking to women on a one-to-one basis is really the best way to helping them understand their particular channel of problems that they're going through and how they can help themselves to get through this, because it's not always about going to see a medical professional, unless of course you think you've obviously got something that needs attending to, and you should always do that. If you just got a niggling thought that something's wrong, do go to your doctor. And so it's why I want everyone, especially the guys, to sit up and listen to understand more about this. So, but actually, menopause, like puberty, is not a disease, but the symptoms can last up to 15 years, as I've said, between 35 and 55. And mental health is talked about a lot, but menopause isn't. And that's what we need to get to grips with, because there are women in the workplace that are emotional and crying, they're feeling depressed, they're showing signs of anxiety, and it's those hormones again. And I know there was an eminent professor, I think it was at Bedford University, and she did some research on this, and she's published papers, and she goes all around the world talking on it, about the emotional side of women in the workplace, because the hormonal effect at menopause. And it is a subject that we really need to get to grips with. No matter how bad women feel at work, menopause is not discussed. Managers are embarrassed or lack experience. Occupational health and HR also lack knowledge. And silence, keeping things to yourself, can lead to other health concerns. Because with the Health Week you've got here, you're having lots of checkups for different things, but type 2 diabetes is very common in women as they go through menopause and beyond. Heart disease, more women die of heart disease than men, and more women die of heart disease than die of cancers. So it's, again, something that's not acknowledged and you don't really think about, but there are all sorts of things going on in your body as a result of the change in your hormones that need to be addressed and have something done about them. And I had a lovely slide about some forward-thinking organisations that do acknowledge menopause in the workplace. And I've been talking to the Royal College of Nursing, the National Union of Teachers, the TUC, the BAWP, which is the British Association of Women Police, and an organisation called SAS, which is the Schools Advisory Service. And they all want to do something about it. They've acknowledged that in most cases, because of the number of women in their employ, that they're noticing that women want to know more and they want something done about it. And I'm talking to them and helping them to do that. And the solution is simple. It's about raising awareness, grabbing the right tools to deal with it, and then you will have the solution at your fingertips, and one that works. And because I'm going to now start talking about the older workforce. So there are 10.8 million women today over 50. They're nearly all working, and most of them probably full-time, because we're not retiring. We're working longer, we're retiring later. The same with the men, but they've always retired slightly later anyway. And by 2031, there will be 14.3 million women over 50. So if you take 70% of that lot, that's a hell of a lot of women that aren't going to be feeling too good when they go to work every day. So, you know, the stats are there for us to do something. Never mind the escalating costs of sickness absence. Women, I know from myself and other women I've spoken to, that women take small amounts of time off, probably on a monthly basis actually for certain valid reasons, but certainly going through menopause, they're not feeling up to par. They might have headaches, they might just be feeling sick, all sorts of things going on that they can't quite put their finger on it, but a day at home might just do it. So they'll take a day or two just to help themselves recover and do what they think to perhaps catch up. They're thinking they're trying to catch up with things. I'm feeling overwhelmed, so I need to take some time off just to get over that. Because they don't know they're going through menopause. Because they're not old enough in their view. Well, surely that's for women over 50. But it's not. It's the 10 years prior to that final point that is causing you all the problems. Now, I've gone through it now, and I've never felt fitter and happier and healthier than I have for the previous 15 years. So it is transient. It is just a passage of time, and knowing how to deal with it is the best way forward on this. While that's loading, I'll just go back. We had the annual general meeting in June in Yorkshire. It was a 3-day meeting for the British Menopause Society. And a lot more things are happening in there because they had people coming on to talk about lifestyle, about women's expectations, and about quality of life, because that's what this is all about. It's not about taking pills and potions. It's about understanding what's going on. And if you do need some medical help, then find out how and why you need to seek it out and get it sorted for you. And you will find in your bags today a raffle ticket, which we're going to draw at the end of this session, because I've created a program called The Notebook, which is a menopause support program. And 4 people will get free entry into that program today. I don't think we need to say, there's a lot of women here going through menopause, we must do something about it. It's not about that. It's just recognizing that it's a passage of life, it's going on, so let's understand a little more about it so that the women themselves feel more comfortable about it. Managers now will then understand that something's happening in women's life, whether they're too young to think about it or not. And so we can make some headway into getting more recognition. So yes, we're having the workforce is aging, but you're breaking new ground and making history here because we've never done it before. Everybody traditionally retired at 60 or 65. But now, you know, I'm over retirement age. I don't have any desire to retire. I'm enjoying so much what I do. I work full-time, and I'm healthy and happy, and I want to continue doing that until they cart me away in a box, as far as I'm concerned. So you've got increasing sickness absenteeism cost. Is it because there's an older workforce, or is it just generally, we don't know. I haven't seen any research on that yet. So because it's historically been a pipe and slippers time, and now we're forced to work longer, but actually that has huge benefits in the workplace because of the experience, because you've got role models, and the mentoring side of it as well. Older women can mentor the younger people in the workforce, because if everybody retires, you've got such a huge mountain to climb training everybody below you, that it's much better to keep those women in place who have that experience and may want to do that part-time, who knows. But because we're creating this new history, it's something we are now designing ourselves, isn't it? So the next slides are all about the program that I'm giving away free to 4 lucky people today. So this is what you get. You get a menopause survival kit, an A to Z of symptoms and solution, a personal action plan. That's where you look at the particular symptoms that are bothering you most, and together we will help you sort out a way of resolving them. There are audio files where I've interviewed medical professionals and women about their own stories, and videos, of course, and how to deal with your emotions. I've included a toolbox in there for how to deal with your emotions. And the man in your life, your relationships, your libido, your sex life. It's something you need to know more about, otherwise you're just guessing. And it's so simple to do, like everything, when you know how. I can tell you all about HRT, the up-to-date scenario on that. It's not as bad as you think it is. And phew, that's a lot of stuff. And this is what people are saying about it. I found such an abundance of comprehensive information and advice. It covered all aspects of this trying period in a woman's life, and it left very few, if any, questions unanswered. It was easy, and I learned a lot. I've built a better picture of menopause and what I can do to help myself. All very helpful. And then this one, my favourite one, is from a guy actually who's very much involved in training senior management. This is an essential guide for everyone. Menopause is a central issue that negatively affects us all in business and our personal lives. Yet we know so little about it. Working with business leaders as I do, I was shocked to find how little information or support is available. This program not only creates awareness and provides solutions, it does so in a simple, approachable and effective way. I can't recommend it enough. And that was Martin Riley from Rebal, which stands for Rebalance. He does a lot of work in training in the workplace. And so why does my menopause solution work? It's not only because of the information that's in there and my own expertise and my own knowledge of everything that I've gone through, because you have a list of symptoms in your goodie bag today. I ticked all of those, and I'm saying, what is this? So it's, it's knowing that all that can happen. But there's a quote there that it was made by quite a young woman, Beyonce, but it had a profound effect on me because it just said to me, yeah, I understand what she's saying. There's nothing like a conversation with another woman because I know she understands me, knows what I'm going through because it's happening to her too. So we don't get clouded with medical information, we just get talking to each other about what's going on. And so here is my promise to you. Personally, reduce your symptoms. Managers, your staff morale will improve and sickness absence reduce. Improve everyone's knowledge of menopause. Improve the talent pool, because you've got women going up the ladder and they're in their 40s when apparently, according to research, they are at their most productive and creative, and then bang, those hormones start going out of sync and they don't know where they are. And they fall off the ladder, and there's no need for that if only they had a little bit more information. So let's get rid of the stigma that's been attached to menopause. So I guarantee you will feel better. I know so well that it will work. I'll give you your money back if you're not happy. There are 3 things you can do today. Hopefully most of you will have my slide of the 7 dwarfs in your goodie bags, because I want you to go back to your office today and start a dialogue about menopause. And, have a laugh about these 7 dwarfs. Have a giggle, get the guys involved, see what they think about it. And ask other people's opinion, talk amongst yourselves about that quote I mentioned, about there's nothing like having a conversation with another woman because she knows what I'm talking about. Does that ring bells with you? Does that make sense? Because that's how we're going to raise awareness. Have we got any immediate questions? Well, I think the jury's still out on that one. They're still researching. Nobody really knows. Some people say yes it is, and others say not. Yes, your hair can be thinning. You can easily put on weight because your cells are no longer storing food as energy. They start to store them as fat. And they do that in order to protect your bones because, of course, we all become now prone to osteoporosis, which is the bone thinning disease. And you've seen women walking around in later life in their 70s and 80s on Zimmer frames. They might have the widow's hump, as it's called, because their spines are shrinking. And that lovely thing is going to happen to all of us as well. And it happens to women sooner than it happens to men because it's hormone related. The hormones have taken a hike out the door, and the body tries to cope in different ways. So does that answer your question? Yes. And what are other physical things? Just apart from the sweating and putting on weight, hair thinning. Yes, they're probably, dry skin, thank you. Yes, dry skin. And yes, you've just got to start looking at different ways of looking after your body and being more aware of it, I think, more than anything else. But I was going to tell you about a chap I met downstairs, and I wasn't offended by it, but he said to me, I'll be generous and say he was in his late 50s, and I've got a stand downstairs, and he looked at it, he thought, oh, what's this? And then he looked at it, and then he said, I find that most offensive. And he walked off, and I thought, what a strange thing to say. And I wanted to ask him why. Why would he find talking about menopause offensive? Is it a generational thing? Does he have daughters, poor things? It's just odd. And by contrast, another lady came up to me and said she was really looking forward to coming to the talk today to find out more about it. And I wish there'd been more men in here today because it's something. I wasn't going to give anybody a biology lesson here today. It's just talking generally about what's going on in your bodies. We seem to have got to grips with puberty. We know everybody slams the doors and gets cross. Well, the same thing happens at the other end to women. They slam doors and get cross too. But and it's quite a difficult situation if you've got teenagers in the house and you're going through menopause. That happened to me. That's a wonderful situation, but we're now best of friends. And my youngest daughter, who it happened to, learnt a lot about menopause. And in the end, she was acting as a counsellor, if you like, at school, because her girlfriends were all saying, oh, my mum at the moment, rabbit, rabbit. And, oh, it's probably menopause. Now I know a bit about that. And she was able to give them some guidance. But it's just knowledge. Knowledge is power, isn't it? So does anybody else have any questions? That's that 10 to 15 year period before you sort of have pre-menopause, perimenopause, when all the symptoms are happening. And then you go through that final 12-month period when you're no longer menstruating. But the symptoms go on longer. And it's just understanding that. That's right, yes, you can take hot flushes to the grave, unfortunately. But so when you see these elderly women going around in short sleeve summer blouses in the middle of winter, you know why. Their temperature levels are higher. For me, it was that I'd wake up in the morning feeling as if I had a hangover. Couldn't understand it. So I was having a glass of wine in the evenings, and so I thought, right, let's, process of elimination, stop that. It made no difference whatsoever. But I still didn't get it. I still didn't understand. I knew that the wine wasn't causing me to feel as if I had a hangover. And it wasn't until I started to do some research that I came to realize that it's the decline of hormones are causing, because hormones are messengers. The brain is sending out messages to the hormones. They're whizzing around the body, and then the adrenals might send another message back, a completely different message. And so it starts going, all over the place, and you don't know where you are. You don't feel debilitated per se, but all these tiny little things are going on that you recognize are outside of what's normal for you. But it's not serious enough to go to your doctor, so you don't. You think, oh, it'll be better next week. And 2 years go by, and then other things start joining in. And then you might read a magazine article or talk to somebody, and then you say, perhaps it's that. You're still not absolutely sure, because women still say to me, oh, I think I'm going through menopause because. And that's either their age or symptoms that they're experiencing. So they're still not sure. So if we understand a bit more about it, we know where to go with it. Well, they say, I went for a blood test, because doctors lack certain knowledge in this area as well. I was given a blood test, and my doctor said to me, well, you're not there yet. And I thought, I'm not where? Where is not there? But I felt silly saying, what do you mean? Because I felt the way he spoke to me that I should know what he's talking about, so I didn't ask him. And then later I found out. Now again, the jury's still out. What I read recently was if you have a blood test on the 3rd day of your cycle, then you have a much better reading than at any other time during your cycle. And that can tell you, because generally the advice is that they need to do several blood tests, and they're very expensive, in order to confirm what's going on. And they can't really confirm where you are until you are actually at the menopause state, when the next day you're going to be postmenopause. That's when they confirm it, other than your age. They'll go by your age. But of course you've got women going through menopause early, 35, who've already gone through it in previous years, and not because they're so young, didn't think anything of it. Maybe the symptoms weren't too bad. And then they are postmenopausal at 35, and in new relationships, and the whole gamut of things that throws up. How do I tell my new partner I can't have children, or I'm uncomfortable having sex? Any of that stuff. Can be so difficult. Even when you've been married to somebody for years and years and years, you're still embarrassed about talking about certain things. But if everybody has got a little idea of what's going on, then we can catch up with each other on that. Uh, 12 months without menstruating. Yes, if you're on HRT, for instance, which I'm on, mostly for osteoporosis, and it helps with dementia and heart health as well. But if you're on HRT and you're thinking, well, have I gone through it? Is it over yet? Generally, your age will tell you the average age is 51, but your body does continue to age regardless of the medication that you are taking. And so when women say, oh, I came off HRT and I just went straight back into menopause, that's because they did it cold turkey. It's like coming off drugs. You're going to feel whoosh, a whole raft of symptoms all at one go. So if you want to come off HRT, then you just do it gradually. I interviewed a lady a couple of weeks ago who's 90 and she's just written a book. She lives in Tunbridge Wells, and she was a nurse all her life, and she set up family planning clinics in the East End of London. Lovely lady. So talking to her about menopause, she's still on HRT, and she said, "You won't get me off it. You'll have to drag me off it." She said, "That's what keeps me going." She doesn't have a walking stick. I've done an interview with her, so you'll be able to see that. I'll put it up on YouTube. She is so full of beans, and she can talk about any subject under the sun. And she's just a lovely lady. So it's all about quality of life and just understanding what's going on and putting those steps in place to get through it all comfortably. Not always, because don't forget, female GPs have done their training with male GPs, and they've always had to be one of the boys in order to fit in. And they can be as blasé about things as some of the male GPs. And yet you have some male GPs who are absolutely wonderful, and they get it, and they understand it, and they help you. But others who just say, "Oh, never mind, dear, it's your age. You just got to put up with it," and you want to go like that. So